Thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to go through the PSI structure just so that we're all on the same page. Most of you will know this, but basically PSI is run by a board of directors, which includes the officers such as chair, secretary, treasurer, and also the chairs of each of the individual subcommittees, of which there are 9 who all have autonomy to run their committee as they see fit. The board runs PSI for the benefit of the membership. In order to help us do this, we utilise skills for the day-to-day running of an executive secretariat, which currently is MCI, and we pay for the privilege of this. There is a contract in place detailing the level of service that we require. So, for instance, within that contract, there is an agreement how many updates of the website there will be every year. If we need more, if we need MCI to do more and request them to do more than the contract, we have to pay an additional fee for that. Okay, so in order to deliver our services to our membership, we are a limited company and we require a business model. So generally, where does our revenue come from? Mainly from our events, such as scientific meetings, which are all fee-paying, or generally all fee-paying, and also membership subscriptions. We also try and bring in revenue through advertising and sponsorship. There are liabilities. We've already mentioned the main one being the Executive Secretariat. We also pay Wiley for the journal, Pharmaceutical Statistics, which we pay around about $20,000 a year to provide our members access to electronic versions through the website. And also general administration, which that also includes accountancy, doing our profit and loss accounts every year. Okay, so let's look in more detail about where our revenue comes from. Currently, our membership levels in 2005 is just a smidgen under 900. And in the graphic in the left-hand side, this is the number of members that PSI have had since formation around 1977. So you can see we've steadily grown through the 90s, peaked in the mid-noughties, and now we've had a slight decline. So the decline in membership is around 25%. So now we're back to levels of membership that we saw in the mid-90s. Will this membership still decline? I would hope not, and you would like to think there will be a plateauing effect moving forward. Okay, so membership is one thing. The other side for running PSI activities, which is more important, is the fees associated with that membership. So here there's a graphic. The membership fees are in blue, and you can see that they remain fairly static over the last decade. We have been making small increments to the membership fees on a year-by-year basis, but the sort of level of increases we're making has been taken back by the reduction in the membership. So in actual fact, it's remained fairly stable. In the orange line there is generally the cost of our secretariat fees, and you can see there that it's increased significantly since 2006. And because our reserve membership subscriptions remain fairly flat, the differential between the cost of running PSI and our membership has grown steadily. Whilst, in 2006, the majority of the cost of running PSI was covered by subscriptions, it is now only around 50%. To counteract this, at the last AGM, the board set a resolution that was voted accepted to put the membership fees up from £80 a year up to £95. Our executive secretariat fees at this current rate, 2015 around £105,000, and we expect, and this increases by contrast with inflation, so we're budgeting for 108,000 for next year, or for this current year. So importantly, PSI reserves. PSI needs to hold steady reserves to have a reasonable cash flow, because if, for instance, running the conference, we need to pay out fees or costs relating to conference before we start generating money in. So we need a level of reserves to have a healthy cash flow. Again, in the orange here, you can see our reserves, our level of reserves over the last decade. And although they fluctuate, sometimes PSA makes a surplus, sometimes it makes a deficit. Generally, they remain fairly stable. In the blue, you can see the conference surplus. And I hope this graphic illustrates that generally the success of PSI and our reserves are very much connected to the success of the conference. So we have a good conference, our reserves tend to go up. Okay. Now, given this is taken from 2015, Emma, our chair of the conference from the conference in Berlin run in May, is here in the room. We've had a fantastic conference in Berlin. We've made a healthy surplus, and of around, we think, 75,000, but we haven't got the full costs in yet, so don't hold me to that. So we would anticipate with those healthy reserves that this year we would make around about £35,000 surplus. So bringing back our reserves up towards the peak that we saw again towards the late noughties. Just a question on comment on PSO strategy. Back in 2013, we sought this opinion through one-to-one discussions for members who attended the Glasgow conference, and also through website survey. And there were three key things that the membership told us that they wanted PSI to do. One was more e-learning, more opportunity for training online, a growth of PSI as a resource portal, and also to help members in their career development. So we have made some progress on that, but I would say e-learning, if you go back to the annual reports, we were talking about e-learning back in 2006, if not before. But we have this year made, or the last couple of years, made progress. We invested heavily in the website to make sure that it was fit for purpose. We've run our first online course. We've run 3 seminars, 4 journal clubs in 2015, and our recent 2016 conference audio associated with the slides are now available to members on the website. Second thing you told us that you wanted us to concentrate on was to become more influential, to be a leading voice that influences industry thinking, to be a spokesman for statisticians within the pharmaceutical industry. So again, we progress on that. We've outreached through the External Affairs Committee to small and medium-sized enterprises. The regulatory subcommittee have held 2 face-to-face meetings with the MHRA and the EMA Biostats Working Party, and we've also established working groups to discuss SD-bands and subgroups. Thirdly, you asked us to outreach more, to inspire and run events in Europe, to partner more with European associations, and to offer more as a membership benefit to increase membership. So we've made some progress. As we said, 2016, we've held a conference in Berlin, which was highly successful. The SIGs and the regulatory subcommittees have merged with ESPI, and they now jointly run committees. And we've also had more non-UK subcommittee members join us. In order to do this, we generally need to bring in more revenue, and we've established a commercial committee looking into generating additional revenue streams. And I think generally around conference and also around job adverts, we've been successful in bringing more revenue. So just finally, I just want to say something around SPI and PSI's role in SPI. So SPI, the European Federation of Statisticians in the Pharmaceutical Industry, was formed in 1990. It is a federation of national European groups of statisticians, of which there are 10 groups, not individual members, but actually associations, and there is one member association represented for each country. PSI represents the UK. We pay a small fee to help cover the cost of running SPI, and the aims of SPI, as you can see, is to promote professional standards, to offer a collective expert opinion on statistical matters across Europe, and to exchange information and harmonise attitudes to matters.
Thanks to PSI for inviting me to give the RSS perspective. I know we're pressed for time, so I'll make this quick. You're in a strong position. So the question for you is, why on earth would you want to do this? And the answer from my perspective is that what the RSS wants to offer you is the best of both worlds. And we want you to keep all the things that you already do, because you're bloody good, and that's why we want to be part of that. So we don't want to close things down. We want you to have all the same opportunities that you currently have. We'll develop your visions around being more European, around doing new activities. We encourage all of that. But what we want to give you is also a stronger infrastructure. So by being part of something bigger, a bigger organisation, we think that we can ever. And that's the basic proposition. We want to take away the burdens of running a bloody organisation from some of you, so that you can actually concentrate on the pharmaceutical. So when this proposition, the proposal was given by the Joint Assessment Committee to the RSS Council was very basically unanimous sense that we should really do this. There's no question about it. I mean, there's discussion about very detailed points, but that's not about the basic proposition. And that's different from, 30 years ago when the RSS was not keen on having the pharmaceutical lot in here, and you had to then get PSI as a result of that. So the kind of culture and the atmosphere of the organisation quite from a long time ago. So what would be the benefits for the RSS? I think one is a united community. So if one voice, we're a stronger community together. Secondly, I think PSI is a dynamic set of individuals and an organisation. So we want that dynamism within the RSS. We want you as volunteers working within the RSS. And we think that you will also set an example to our other sections. So you would come in as the pharmaceutical section of the RSS. We've just had a sections review, which really said we want our sections to be much broader than what they do. And you organise a conference, you have your own journal. This is really setting the bar much higher. And that's, we want to encourage other sections to do the same. So it's not that we want to hold you down. We want you to be exemplar of how we want the rest of the organisation to behave. And finally, I think the benefit for us is that one of the strengths of the RSS is that we're a broad church. We bring together people from academia, from government, from private sector, and from a range of different methodological backgrounds. So coming into the fold of that, we think is a strength. So the diversity within the society is a strength. What are the benefits for you? Well, in particular, there'll be a membership fee increase. So you should be asking that question. As a direct member, you start getting Significance magazine, which is, most of you will have seen the magazine. It's a nice magazine 6 times a year. So that's a kind of direct benefit. There are various RSS. You have an e-bulletin which comes out every 2 weeks. So you're receiving that with signposting lots of information. Discounts on events and training. We have a member discount scheme which gives you access to discounts on wine and travel and all those sorts of things. And actually, if you use that, you can make your money back on the RSS fee quite quickly, actually. But I think more importantly, it's just being part of a bigger network of 8,000 statisticians. The learning, the capability you get in those networks is is very, very powerful. So those are direct benefits for members, but there are some slightly more intangible benefits for the organisation. So free access to this venue. I mean, we deliberately moved you around today to give you a sense of the different rooms that we have, and as you can see, we've got some nice meeting rooms. Your board members freed up from administration, which, you know, most of you are not involved at that level, but those of you who have been know that that takes up time, that takes up capacity, and actually if you were freed up from that, you could be organising events, training, outreach, etc., etc. I think that on balance, you'd be likely to get more staff resource than you currently do. I say this on the basis that, you know, all of our staff are employed at us, so there's no profit element. I can't make this a guarantee because what I don't know is, you know, your membership, what the income will be over time. But on balance, my view is that you'll probably get more staff resource. The other thing is you'll have access to our 25 existing staff. So you'll be tapping into people who are already here, who are already servicing the society. And I think the specialism that they bring is particularly helpful. So by having 25 people, I have a specialist head of training who's doing really, really good stuff on training. We have a specialist venue team here managing the venue. We've got an event person, we've got a policy person, press, media, web, IT, and we've got specialism in all those areas. So, and I think that there's a benefit. Similarly, you get the ability to invest in the long run in infrastructure. So the RSS is a £2 million turnover organisation. It's easier for us to make investments in boring things like databases. You know, IMIS, which you work on, and horrendous as a database. And over time, we're going to have to make a move to something like Microsoft Dynamics. Now that will be probably a several £100,000 project. No cheaper for you just because you're smaller. So, you know, let's take away the fact that you have to do it and we'll have to do it together. Online training, we've just invested in an online training platform. We've developed that. We're going to launch our first bit of online training next week. So the platform is all there. We've got the in-house knowledge, so you can come in and tell us what you want to do in terms of pharmaceutical stats training. We can make that happen. So I think that kind of background infrastructure is a really positive thing that you can gain access to. And then finally, I mean, you were talking in your sort of what your members desire. You want stronger influence. I mean, in the last few years, the RSS's policy influence has been really, really going up several notches. I gave evidence to the Science and Tech Committee a few months ago. We put forward the idea that there ought to be a new council for big data ethics. The government has accepted that recommendation and it's about to be enacted. That was an idea we developed in a workshop last November. So we've gone from, you know, the idea through to operation in kind of 6 or 9 months. So we've got a team that is very good at getting media for our kind of policy interventions. But we do very little in pharmaceutical stats because that's not an area where we have a group of people doing the work. If you were helping us with the content, we could help get it out there and help assist you with influencing at the levels you want to. Let me deal with 2 specific concerns which many PSI members have. One is we don't want you to stop your conference. Your conference is excellent. It meets the need. It's a niche product for your own community. And I came along to Berlin. It's an excellent conference. Carry on. You know, we don't want to do anything about that. And secondly, yes, the RSS is primarily a UK-based body, although we are global in terms of our membership. But that doesn't stop you from being European. All the links you have with PSI and others, keep doing that. I mean, there's nothing that you coming into the RSS, we wouldn't stop any of that. So as I say, in conclusion, we want you to keep doing what you're doing. You know, we just think that you'll get economies of scale. We'll all get economies of scale by working together, and we'll be stronger in the long run together. Excellent. Thank you. Cuffe?
Thank you, Nigel. So, as one of the Joint Assessment Committee members, I'm going to present what's the union proposal, just really a small section of it, just to give you an idea what was in the union proposal. It is on the website and the RSS website, but it's a little taster. So, in terms of the discussions to date, whilst we we had formal discussions from October of last year. In fact, I know Steve Pike, when Heaton joined RSS, Steve Pike and Heaton reached out to each other. There were informal discussions for actually quite a few years, even before this kind of more formal merger discussions, or really an agreement to enter discussion to assess the potential for a union was looked at. So in terms of the Joint Assessment Committee, there were 5 members directly from PSI. That's Mark Morris, Robert, Cuffe, myself, Nigel Howitt, and Naomi Given. And then from the RSS side, there was Deborah Ashby, Sue Todd, Jen Rogers, and Rob Masters. And then representing both PSI and RSS, it was Steve Pike and Andy Grieve. Now, Andy Grieve was one of the originators of PSI, so it was, in fact, very interesting to have him involved as part of the Joint Assessment Committee. And the output of all of this was the proposed union. So just a very high-level summary. PSI would become the pharmaceutical statistics section within the RSS. I'm sure most of you are aware RSS has many sections within it. The PSI membership would transfer to the RSS, and the PSI Board of Directors would become a steering committee. It's a name. Objectives, activities, and central support, delegated authority would be documented in a charter. Now, this charter doesn't actually exist. This union proposal documents some of the elements that might be included in that charter, but that charter does not as yet exist. And then the subcommittee structure would be up to PSI, so it would most likely reflect the committees as they do now. Then in terms of the pharmaceutical statistical section composition, already shortened to PSS, the chair, vice chair, and meeting secretary would be elected by the members of the RSS. Now, this is slightly different to election via the PSI AGM. And it consists additionally of up to 10 further reps of its subcommittee/scientific working group, so essentially the other directors that were part of PSI, but they would be nominated onto the committee by the chair of this section, so slightly different. And then subcommittee working group membership would be determined by the subcommittee working group chair, very similar to now. So the chair of the pharmaceutical section will serve as a member of the RSS Council for a 4-year period, and also the chair will be co-opted onto the RSS Executive Committee for a 4-year period. And in terms of the objectives, I'm not going to read these out because these are namely the PSI objectives. So they've been put in as part of the pharmaceutical statistics section objectives. Now, there are just very, very small tweaks related to the fact that PSS is part of a larger organisation, which will be RSS. So contribution to the outreach and statistical literacy will be a part of the society. It wouldn't just be limited to the pharmaceutical statistics section. But everything that PSI has strived to do in the last few years is listed there. And then in terms of the activities, Heaton has already said, ring-fenced after the PSI conference, but there are only minor adjustments relating really to RSS structure. So commitment to organise at least 1 conference, 3 scientific meetings, 3 webinars, 1 careers event, and 4 training courses, including the IT. Active involvement with FBI, promoting best practice, reviewing regulatory authority policy, and driving debate on future guidance and engaging with statisticians and regulatory agencies. It's all very similar. There'll be recommendations to the editorial board of the Journal of Pharmaceutical Statistics, and then perhaps the only additional one here is the coordinate the activities, which I can't spell, with other sections to promote objectives of RSS. I have finished apart from the slides that didn't get added, so I'll just mention the slides that I wanted to add. Apologies for notice. And it's just about governance and finance, which I think I added based on seeing already some of the questions being posed. So the pharmaceutical statistics section receive a budget on an annual basis to achieve its activities, and the budget is contingent on ability to achieve revenue on agreed And the section will produce an annual report detailing activities, expenditure, and income versus expenditure, with a strong communication line with the medical section, with one representative serving on both committees. The only other thing that I will mention that is part of the union proposal is that we recognise, PSI recognise and RSS recognise as part of the Joint Assessment Committee that there is a need to define a mechanism for exit that will be recognised as legitimate and binding within that 4-year period. So on the basis that part of the Joint Assessment Committee was assessing that there needed to be an escape clause within the first 4 years should PSI want to pull the parachute cord, essentially. I'll finish now, Nigel.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We have got 5 minutes now for questions, but as I mentioned earlier, this is just in terms of clarification. We've got a big debate coming up, so where you can ask panelists and things. But would anyone like to ask a quick question? Just to clarify.
May I ask a clarification, Nigel?
Yeah, sure, Byron.
It's what Catherine said about the election of the chair of the proposed PSS section. If the election is for RSS members to take part in, does that mean all RSS members or only those who nominate themselves to be part of PSS? As I understand it, as a fellow of the RSS myself, although I'm a fellow, I don't actually belong to any section as such. I am just a member of the RSS. So who actually will vote to elect the chair of the PSS section?
So it's Heathan here, Byron. Just to respond, this was something that was discussed quite a bit at the Joint Assessment Committee. I know you say as an RSS fellow you're not a member of any sections. Actually, you're a member of all of them. But the reality is that most people don't identify, with many more than one or two of them. And elections have historically tended to be fairly uncontested. So the move we want to make, partly prompted by this discussion of a union, is that people would identify which sections they actually want to, in effect, opt into. And that would allow PSI members and other RSS members with an interest in pharmaceutical statistics to belong to that section. So that would be the move that we would be proposing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Heaton. We've got time for one more question if anyone wants to ask in terms of clarification. And anyone in here? David? You might be allowed to. Sorry.
I would be interested to know both from PSI and RSS, roughly, what is the proportion of the membership that is UK-based and what proportion is outside?
I can answer that because I did this week. So 38% of the membership currently is outside of the UK. 38%. For PSI.
Yeah, for RSS it's about 25%.
But in terms of the RSS though, it's mainly is it in America?
No. So broadly there is Commonwealth countries.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean.
But not Europe.
Less than Europe. Yeah.
Thank you, David. One last question, because that was quite quick. Yeah. Come on, Kevin.
I wanted to try to understand the finances a little bit better. So it seems as if the money in the bank at the end of the year is fairly stable.
Yeah.
The membership fees are fairly stable. But the costs of administration are going up. So does that mean that we're making more money in some other ways?
So as we said, I think our finances tend to live and die by the conference. It fluctuates, but I think, in the last couple of years, we've had good surplus from our conferences, which has helped boost our reserves. So generally, and we've also tried to be more commercially active in generating revenue from utilising the conference to generate revenue through that way, through exhibition spaces, you're well aware. and also sponsorship. And we've also recently targeted trying to reach more, generate more cash through advertisements, utilising the website to advertise, to use an advertisement. This year we've had our first banner advert on the website.
In terms of the MCI costs, then, Mark, how have they changed maybe in the last 3 years just to help the members?
Well, I think they've steadily grown. There's an inflation increase, but there has been an increase in the MCI fees, generally because we've been doing more with the conference, and the conference has grown, and therefore the level of support required for the conference has grown in line with that. We have a contract with MCI which sets out what service they provide. That contract is open for renegotiation towards the end of this year, which we may hesitate until 2017, depending on the vote. And again, that is open to negotiation depending on what level of support we want.
Answer your question, Kevin. Great. I think we can move on now. So if we move on to the main debate, which Catherine will be chairing.
And I have got the yes campaign on my right, and I've got the no campaign on my left. Each campaign has speakers with significant PSI experience. Indeed, all the speakers have either been a PSI chair or are becoming a chair, such as Nigel Howitt. So each speaker will have 7 minutes maximum to speak. There will be a yes speaker followed by a no speaker. There is time allocated afterwards to statements from the floor. We have 3 already, and questions. We also have 4 already. Because we already have statements and questions received, they will be done in strict order of receipt, and then followed by any further questions from the floor or statements from the floor. Please note that because the audio is now working, I will refer to the person requesting the statement and ask them to read the statement rather than because we now do have audio. So I will be requesting in turn. For the Q&A section, we'll also be asking Heaton to rejoin the panel so that he can respond on behalf of RSS. And in terms of rules of engagement, finally, I'd just like to say, in light of Brexit, and because we are all statisticians, I request the truth and any projections to be highlighted as such, i.e. it's a projection. Thank you very much. I'd like to pass to the first yes speaker, who will be Mark Morris.
Robert.
It will be Robert now, changed in the last hour.
Thanks very much, Catherine. Normally what happens indeed, as we say at the start, we're going to engage in mature and responsible debate before tearing strips out of each other. I think that's particularly important to be careful about that tonight when we know that a member of the No campaign has already committed murder. Kerry Gordon, you may have noted on LinkedIn, described Alan Ebbett, one of our honorary members, as both late and great. Great he certainly is, but deceased he is not. So I bring to you the Yes campaign's motto, we haven't killed anybody. Thank you. Yes, yes. The board's ambition for PSI, and I think the members as well, is that we become an influential voice promoting statistical insight in healthcare. And that's a big ambition. It's healthcare, it's not just pharma, it's not just in the UK, it's not just in the EU. It's substantial. And as Mark laid out, over the last few years, we've been making incremental steps towards that goal. Bit by bit, we are getting there. And I think the argument from this side is that becoming part of the RSS would shoot us a few years further along that road. No one action is going to solve every problem or every challenge the PSI faces. And what you have to decide when you vote is whether or not the benefit that this will bring in service of some of our goals is outweighed by some of the problems that will be highlighted by the folks who are campaigning against the merger. My belief, clearly, sitting where I'm sitting, is that they do. I want to talk about the influence that we exert. We already reach out to the public, and we do that in partnership with the RSS, with the Award for Pharmaceutical Statistics, with the Before the Headlines program, which has been populated largely in recent years by their volunteers. But becoming part of the RSS, I think we have to talk about two key parts of it. scientific content generated and how far it goes globally. And because of that, I want to talk about online training. As has been identified earlier, we're one of 10 member nations in SPI. Our SIGs and our regulatory committee are co-sponsored, and it is through that co-sponsorship, it is through SPI that we are granted an audience with the EMA Biostatistics Working Party. They do not want to talk to individual nations or national associations. They have no interest in going around Switzerland and Germany and France. So we can take, I think, three things from that. First is, we're not looking at a situation like the one that confronted Hughes. There isn't a gap of statistical associations across members, or across the country, members waiting to be recruited into the rapacious arms of PSI as we march broadly forward into Europe. That's not waiting to happen, and those national associations are quite fond of their members. Secondly, it is through partnership with those national associations that we exert our influence. The day of the single national association in a regulated industry, it's not going anywhere. And thirdly, as we've heard from Ethan, there is no threat to our continued participation in SPI, our continued co-sponsorship of the SIGs or of the regulatory committee that builds our influence. So I find it, so from my perspective, I see the merger or the becoming part of the RSS as something that has no impact on our partnerships in Europe or on our ability to wield influence as part in partnership with the many other organizations. Now, I want to talk about the online training and online recording of meetings, because what defines the reach of our content, thumbs on seats and voices on the telephone. And ultimately, after we've run the meeting, how many people download that content later on. We've been trying to get our materials online for 10 years. You go back and look at the board meetings from 2006. We all know back in 2006 when the advertising revenue was good, we brought in cameramen to record our meetings, and that cost about $2 or $3 grand a day. And then the money got a little bit tighter, and we had volunteers sitting down the back of the meeting room. Do you remember the PSI laptop? Poking the space bar in order to advance slides in time with the audio that they were recording. And that still wasn't successful because it's not just recording it. You've got to get consent from the speakers, you've got to put it up online, you've got to find a way to price it in order to get it to pay for itself. And we just haven't quite managed it. Things change, volunteers leave, you have to learn it all over again. And interestingly, in recent years, since we've changed our model for our events, we no longer hire out venues, we go from company to company because the bums on seats have gone down, we have to admit it. Well, that means every time you want to record a meeting, you've got to start over again. You've got to learn the process again. I'm sorry, that's a waste of volunteer time. That is a total waste. And what the RSS has and what they bring us is a facility that is not just the stability to invest. That's nice, but they've already made the investments. They already have the one building that you can go to for every meeting. They already have the cameras and the recording facilities, and you can go on to the YouTube RSS channel if you want to see the recordings that they've already made at the conference here in Errol Street. They've been doing it for a while. They've beaten us to the punch, and they've beaten us to the punch with online training. I just heard about that for the first time tonight. They're ahead of us. So we know things are going okay, and we had a great conference this year. We could have more money to invest. That's fantastic, and we could generate these capabilities for ourselves. That's undoubtedly true. We could put together a request for proposals. We could write out a job spec for recording, putting up online content. Why would we do that? Why would we waste the time of our board and our volunteers to get them to do that when they could be doing what the board and committee should do? They should be talking about pharmaceutical stats. They should be talking about the science, taking the information from other statisticians across the world, bringing that into committees, into the board, and sending it out to our scientific meetings to influence statistical practice across our industry. It's that executive logistical support the RSS brings that would help us to take a lot of the burden off many of our members. So ultimately, you have to ask yourself, what is the brand? What makes people loyal to PSI? I think it's the activities. I think it's ITIT. I think it's some bad dancing at conference. I think it's shared interest and passion, and believe that the RSS is a good platform for us to deliver that, and one that will not damage our aspirations to reach out further to Europe. And so that's why I'm in favour of joining them.
Thank you, Robert. I'd now like to pass to the first of the No campaign, Nigel Howitt.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Robert. I must like to say as well, we haven't murdered anyone yet. but I say yes. Okay, so as your next chair and elected representative, I think it's really important that I share my views. I've been on the joint PSI RSS committee and I've discussed the merger at length with the board. I even had actually prepared some of the materials that you probably read on the website. It may therefore surprise you that with my involvement on the inside that now I'm actually not in favour of the merger. And there's a reason for that. I can see some advantages for the mergers, and Robert's articulated them very well. But the crucial thing for me, it's all about independence. And are the advantages strong enough for us to give up our independence? And I don't think they are. Firstly, as well, the agreement is being sold as a merger, but in my mind, it's certainly not. And the PSI would actually be absorbed into the RSS, and it would lose its independence. And that's not really just my opinion. You just need to look at the organisation chart. In true mergers, the name and the management structure of the new organisation changes. If you think of the formation of GlaxoSmithKline and Novartis, in the current proposal, the RSS management structure will pretty much remain the same, and PSI will be bolted on as one of 14 RSS sections. And to be honest, why should the RSS change? They've got 7,000 members, whereas we've only got 898 members. So we're not an equal partner. So we need to be realistic. So why is a need to merge at the moment? Is PSI struggling? Well, I mean, you've heard Mark's presentation earlier. That is not the case. We're in great shape. So we've got 898 members strong. Our finances are in good shape, and that's actually according to the PSI treasurer as well. We have large financial reserves and are forecasted to make profit for 2016. We've just held the best conference and the most successful conference I've ever attended with PSI, and we had 377 delegates. Commercial has just raised alone, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but commercial raised in the last year £100,000. So you can talk about, okay, MCI's fees are £130,000. We actually covered 100,000 of that just from the commercial, and that's not taken into account advertising as well, which is also on the up. So that's in terms of sponsorship and exhibiting, £100,000. We have a full complement of willing volunteers. We have a great journal, and we provide many excellent scientific and training opportunities. We are attracting increasing numbers of European members, and as I mentioned earlier, 38% of our membership is now from outside the UK. And we did have a few problems with MCI, admittedly, a couple of years ago, but those have improved now, and we're getting a good service. Losing your independence is a huge issue. We will be dependent on the RSS for our annual budget, and so that every single year we'll be going to cap in hand to the RSS to agree a budget. And that is really important because the budget drives everything you do, all your activities. So if you have a decrease in your budget, that is going to decrease the activities we can provide. And I really can't underestimate that. And the other thing as well is what happens if we lose membership as a result of the merger? Well, that is likely to be impacting your budget too. If the interest and the membership goes down, how can we go and ask for £150,000 to run all these activities? And we will lose members, and that's even by the RSS figures. They understand that as well. The membership fee is going to increase to at least £135, and that's based on 2017 RSS rate. That is a significant increase, particularly for members who are paying out of their own pocket. Many members of our European members also will be dismayed by us moving to a generalist, or even more so into a UK-focused organisation. That is not what they joined up for. We are also putting a significant amount of trust in the RSS that the merger will work. So a written charter is going to be written to document the agreement. And this was actually one of my suggestions, by the way. But even with that charter, will it be legally binding? And what happens if the management structure at the RSS changes and they have a different agenda? That, you know, who can we hold to an account if things suddenly change? Because you're all in the same organisation. These are significant risks, and really they should not be underestimated. In addition, once the merger happens, it is generally accepted by the board that it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to go back and reform the PSI. We would have used a significant amount of our reserves in doing so, and we would have lost a lot of members and a lot of momentum. It would never be the same organisation again. And I just want to say to this as well, I'm not anti-RSS. Please get me wrong. I'm not anti-RSS at all. RSS is a fantastic British institution. We have common goals in some areas, and I actually support a third way where we partner with the RSS where it makes sense for both organisations. But that should not mean giving up your independence. I believe there's a third way, and we need to look at that. It was a great honour to be elected as the next chair of the PSI. I've served on the board and scientific committee for 10 years. I love the organisation. I love the effectiveness. I love the energy. We have so much to be proud of. I also support PSI's aim to become more European. And I actually spent 6 years on FSPI, and I really understand it very well. 3 years of that as the president as well. So as your new leader, my vision is for PSI to continue to be successful and independent. I want to continue with our strategy of attracting European statisticians. I want to rotate the annual conference between EU and UK and Europe. I want to make online scientific content an absolute priority within an organisation and put lots of money into it. Talk to wide. Okay, I'll just finish my last bit. Okay. Also continue to be a member of SPI. I want to go with that as well. Through good leadership and by using the right infrastructure, we will continue to be successful. PSI is a fantastic organisation. We have a great future, and we should not give up our independence. The risks far outweigh the benefits. I ask you to vote no to the merger.
Thank you, Nigel. I'd now like to pass to the second and final speaker for the Yes campaign, Mark Morris.
You should know by now, Catherine, once Nigel in full flow, you can't stop him. So I appreciate that this is an emotive issue for many who have served, supported and gained benefit from PSI membership over the years. But I want to use this opportunity to address the misconception that this is a hostage takeover by the RSS. Put simply, this is not the motivation behind this proposal. These discussions are focused on how to free our volunteers from the burden of the day-to-day running of an association, whilst providing PSI with more robust foundations to allow it to continue to provide what it set out to achieve, a community to share ideas and technical expertise. The RSS, far from wanting to obstruct us from doing what we do, see the benefits of combining the organisations to bring a dynamic group of statisticians that they currently do not cater for into their midst, and with the economies of scale that the merger will bring, can provide greater support than we currently have at our disposal to give us a greater chance of realising the goals that I outlined earlier. Therefore, I'd like to take this opportunity just to try and address some of the questions you may have. Nigel talked about loss of independence. What I want to highlight is that the chair will have autonomy to run the section and define the structure of the subcommittees in the pharmaceutical stats section as we have currently in PSI today. For the majority of our volunteers, there will be no difference to how they operate. He mentioned about loss of control of our budget. We will be provided a budget in order to deliver on our commitments. Our commitments say what we're going to bring to RSS. We have to accept that we are but one of the number of sections that the RSS has to service, and sometimes we may not be able to do all that we wish. But let's not pretend that as an independent organisation, we have the total freedom to invest as we see fit. We also have restrictions placed upon ourselves through the level of our financial reserve. Our finances, by and large, live and die by the success of the conference, and the uncertainty in our income makes committing to long-term investment difficult. However, what I would say, the greatest restriction we have from doing and achieving more is not from our finances, but from the level of volunteer activity. With the RSS comes the backroom staff to make volunteering easier and bring specialist skills to help us to deliver on our goals and provides financial savings for services which otherwise we have to pay in addition to our current executive secretariat fees. Will the energy and identity of PSI be lost? There is no reason why this should be the case with strong leadership within the section. PSI is shaped by the energy of its volunteers. The pharmaceutical stats section will be shaped by the energy of its volunteers. I'm glad that Nigel is proud, as I am, of what PSI achieves. Over time, I'm sure that both he and I and everyone online and in this room will be equally proud of what the pharmaceutical stats section will achieve. I want to highlight, as Nigel has, that there is an agreement, that there will be an agreement regarding the level of activities that the pharmaceutical stats section will commit to deliver to the RSS. So the number of scientific meetings, training courses, etc., will by and large remain the same as they do today, provided we commit to be able to run those meetings. What about the conference? Well, as we heard from Heaton, the RSS recognises that the PSI conference is sufficiently different to the RSS conference to warrant it being a standalone event. Most of the events that PSI runs run at a surplus. Why would the RSS want to negatively affect this? It's not in their interest and it's not in ours. Similarly, it makes no sense that the RSS would not try to service the needs of a pharmaceutical stats section. At the end of the day, we all have the opportunity to vote with our feet. So on the other question around international reach, will this be lost? Well, as I highlighted through our association with SPI, PSI has successfully grown our network and reached decisions across Europe. The SIGs and Regulatory Subcommittee are now run jointly with SPI. We have more non-UK based members supporting our subcommittee. As we have heard, the RSS is an international organisation and is not a barrier to overseas membership. So, in summary, I'd just like to make 3 points. The RSS are here not to destroy what we have created. The proposal is designed to help support our activities and ease the burden of volunteering. And for the RSS, they want to bring a vibrant, energetic community into their fold, and I see no reason why this should not be the case.
Thank you, Mark. And I'd like to pass to the final speaker for the No campaign, Sara Hughes.
Thank you, Catherine, and good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to start by explaining why I was part of the panel this afternoon on behalf of the No campaign. I spent 9 years on the PSI board, including a full term as PSI chair. I was the chair of the only joint PSI RSS conference ever back in 2005. And I've also previously sat on the RSS Council, the RSS Conference Committee, and so I have first-hand experience of both organisations. And I wanted to start off by saying that I hold both organisations in great esteem and want both societies to be successful, as evidenced by the effort I was willing to put into those previous roles I mentioned. RSS has a key role to play within the UK as an authoritative, independent voice on important statistical issues of impact at a national level. Statistical issues could be pharmaceutical or medical related, but equally could be related to many of our other statistical industries and practices, such as financial, environmental, education, and so on. And as such, their focus is very different to that of PSI. RSS is UK-centric. It's the Royal Statistical Society, regardless of their reach that was talked about into Commonwealth countries, predominantly to help with training and development. RSS aims to represent the voice of statistics in the UK on a broad range of topics. And as for any large organisation with multiple different areas of focus, they can be slow to move, bureaucratic, and unable to operate in the very nimble way that PSI does. PSI has a laser focus on statistical issues of concern in the pharmaceutical industry. It is well known and respected across the industry globally and can act and react quickly when it's required. I do believe PSI needs to change, but for the above reasons, I think this change in front of us is the wrong one. We risk losing that laser focus. We risk losing the energy, the nimbleness to lay on so many events. We risk losing being a key voice on pharmaceutical statistics issues where quick responses are needed. With the increased subscription fee, we risk losing members and therefore industry status and impact. We risk becoming more UK-centric just at the time when we need to become more global within a global pharmaceutical industry. Instead, I believe in the following change. I believe PSI should continue on its journey to become a European rather than UK-based membership organisation, and I believe that PSI should become much more aggressive in that journey. The pharmaceutical industry is a global industry, true now more than ever before, and the role of any national body in a global industry will only ever be very limited. Ultimately, we need a global society of pharmaceutical statisticians, in my view, one body that represent the industry in discussions with regulators around the world, with a sole focus on pharmaceutical statistics. 2 years ago, PSI set a key strategy to be more active in Europe, and in this short time, PSI has succeeded in this. We recently held a very successful conference in Europe, attracted 2 board members from Europe, and currently have almost 40% of members now from outside the UK, predominantly in Europe. A merger with the RSS would, I believe, disenfranchise these members, and we risk losing them. And I have no doubt such a merger would halt this agreed PSI strategy, reduce PSI's voice in Europe, and reduce the global influence and reputation that it has taken so long to build. I can see the benefits to RSS of this so-called merger. Most recently available RSS annual report states that RSS made an overall loss of just over £240,000 in 2014. The report also recognised the Society's premises are no longer entirely fit for purpose and should look to improve its financial situation. The report also noted a concern around declining member numbers and the decline in income from journals. In contrast, you've heard from the presentations this afternoon that PSI's reserves are in great shape, and we look set to make a healthy profit again in 2016 thanks to that very successful European conference. The impact factor of our journal rose again recently, and unlike RSS, we're not tied to a permanent back office with the financial obligations that brings, as well as restricting our ability to switch providers if unhappy with the level of service. And incidentally, in my experience as chair of that joint PSI-RSS conference, I applaud the Yes campaign's desire to reduce volunteer time. My own experience during that joint conference was that it actually resulted in increased administrative work for me as the chair, compared to when I ran regular conferences. And finally, forgive me for being uncharacteristically blunt, but I find it shocking that the PSI board has not yet determined whether it is in favour of this proposed merger. If the majority of the board is not in favour of the merger, then we're wasting significant money and resources on debating this further. As our elected representatives, the PSI board should first determine what they believe is the strategic direction of PSI and then seek membership approval for that strategy. Opening debates and spending significant money and significant resources on questions when we do not even know that the board is majority in favour seems to me a very backward to front way of operating. So in summary, I would respectfully propose that we say no to the proposed merger, which we do not even know has the backing of the majority of the PSI board, and instead focus our energy and resources on building on our success into a European global society of pharmaceutical statisticians. This society, I believe, has the potential to be far more impactful than any other current statistical society with an interest in or focus on pharmaceutical statistics, and would certainly be more impactful for and beneficial to PSI members than the proposed current merger.
Sarah, that concludes the debaters for the yes and the no campaign. I am now going to pass to the Q&A and offered speakers. The first, and as I said, this will go in strict order of the seat. So I'm going to ask Byron Jones on the call to read out his statement, and I will remind you, you have 2 minutes maximum, Byron.
Yes, thank you, Cuffe, and thank you to all the debaters and other speakers. Just so you know who I am, I'm leading the No campaign, and I'm previously been a board member for the past 4 years. So I have some experience of serving on the board. So my question, well, I have a statement. I believe that MCI, the management company that is employed by PSI, is providing an excellent service. They also provide support to a diverse range of other clients, and hence have a breadth of experience and expertise that they bring to the management of PSI. MCI, as a commercial company working in a fiercely competitive environment, have to be at the top of their game. This means they must be nimble and quick to react to the external environment and keep their practices and technologies up to speed. And so my question then is, can the same be said of the administrative services of the RSS, who only have the very limited experience working with one client themselves? Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. The next one is Kevin Kane. Kevin, would you like to come up to the front of your questions? I think probably 3 is relevant. Kevin submitted 4 questions online. Did you want to request or ask or change your questions? Carry on.
First question is, can we be clear whether PSI's financial situation is the motivation for the merger or not?
Yes, campaign, come on first.
This is not a defensive merger. PSI is not in financial peril, but the RSS brings resources that help us to get better faster. So yes, that is a statement about financial situation, but it's not. I think it's been spun sometimes as like life or death. It's not that. It's about a merger from a position of strength.
So the question, sorry, going back to the question.
Can you be clear whether PSI's financial situation is a motivation for the merger or not?
I'd say no. I'd say no, to be honest. As Mark presented earlier, the finances are very good at the moment. I don't think that's the argument.
The next question is,
Please remember the people on the line need tea.
as I understand it, the current proposal is that the RSS will provide support equivalent to the current support that we have from MCI. Seems to me there's various carrots that are being dangled, for example, more resources for online training. Given that we are asking for a 42% increase in the membership fee, can we actually have a deal which gives the members more than what we currently have at the moment?
I'm going to ask Heaton to respond.
Just to clarify, more what? Can we have a deal to get more what?
I think at the start we were presented a proposal which basically matches the activities of PSI at the moment to what the RSS is committing to provide. My question, what I would like to see is a deal that actually has the RSS committing to providing the members more than what we've currently got at the moment.
So there's real uncertainty here as to, so 25% of PSI members are already RSS members. So on the one hand, you'll get an increased membership fee, so there'll be more resource. On the other hand, there'll be fewer members, because 25% of them won't be paying twice, as it were. So, and then there'll presumably be some change in the level of membership as well. So it's quite hard to predict the overall resource base that will kind of come into the RSS if PSI did merge. So it's quite hard to give a sort of strict answer to that. I think the proposition, certainly that I would make and others have been making, is that over time there are a lot of economies of scale. For example, the fact that you have access to this building, you can hold as many events as you like in London for free. Should bring the cost base down. That means that you can go further on other things.
Yes, so if the order is RSS, yes, then no. So yes, campaign.
I turn this one to Sarah. You've got something.
I guess two comments. I mean, one is that certainly with one-day events, we have tried to do them more recently in a cost-free way already by using companies rather than hired offices. But I was curious to know whether PSI and RSS have done scenario planning. You talked about 25% overlap in membership between the two organisations already. We have almost 40% of the members in Europe. You could start to see that all of a sudden the total number of members could erode very rapidly, resulting in much smaller income than PSI currently gets. And if that is, in a worst case scenario, have you thought about what would be feasible, what would be the budget in that situation?
So I don't think that we haven't worked through that level of detail. I think the order in which this has been done is identify the high-level principles, seek assent from the membership before getting into detailed planning. I think it would be unreasonable to ask Keaton to come back to us with like a 3-year FTE model for what he's going to give us when he doesn't know whether or not we're bothered. So I think that does have to happen, and I think it will be up to the board to sit in judgment on that detailed negotiated proposal that will have to go through the scenario planning before we finally go forward with the merger. So I think it's important to, I think some high-level things have to happen before we get to that level. Keaton, I'd take your thoughts on that.
I think we're on the edge of the time. We should move on. And Kevin, I'm going to give you one of your other questions. So which one do you want to ask? And please come to the speaker.
Have PSI adequately explored expanding into Europe and the rest of the world, and compared this potential scenario against the merger with RSS?
Yes, campaign.
So I think it's fair. We have sat down as a board and looked at the strategy. But I'm a little bit confused what we mean by expansion into Europe. Through our links with the SBI, we've obviously generated a network, bringing in more people, asking them to be involved in PSI activities. SBI have been, as we've highlighted, some of our subcommittees already being jointly run. We're trying to run more events in Europe. We've sent out an offer, to say to the SBI associations, if you want us to come and help run meetings, then contact us. The take-up has been very virtually non-existent. But what are we talking about? Are we talking about taking over, hostile takeover of European associations?
I would add, I think the vision that Sarah laid out of a European-wide member-led association is a better end state. That's great, and I can buy into that. I question whether it is realistic when we face other national associations who are wedded to their members, and the work and the distraction that we would have to go through in order to get to that point where we can represent European pharmacostatisticians to the agencies.
So I'll answer Kevin's question first. So yes, the board did look at a number of other options, such as the DIA, actually going out and talking to other groups within SBI as well. So there was some due diligence that was done. So it wasn't like this was the only option on the table. So I don't want people thinking that, because that's not the case. I'd also like to respond to Sarah's point earlier, which is a good one. And I think, and I need to hold my hands up here as well, because I'm a board member. I do believe in collective responsibility. But I do think that myself and the board, we should have voted first on whether we agree with the proposal before it actually goes out to the membership. That's today. And there will be a vote in September. So before we vote as a membership, you will know where the vote is.
Thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next requester of a question, which is Paul Shuttleworth. Now, Paul, I can't see you on the list, so I'm going to read your question. And this is really a question to Heaton. Will the PSI branch of the RSS be able to use a similar level of funding from the merged group to provide a similar level of PSI-related events?
Well, I think I answered the question earlier for Kevin. We can't be exact about it, but I think yes is the sort of short answer, and I think over time actually we'll be able to expand the amount of.
Okay. There was a sub-question which nobody understood, so I'm going to leave that. Does anybody else want to comment?
Yes, just to follow up on the previous point, because I'm not clear that you can say that with such confidence if you haven't yet done the scenarios plan. That begs the question in my mind.
No, I say it with uncertainty, but I suppose it's the economies of scale argument that I'm making as opposed to the membership.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'd now like to invite Jonathan Bartlett up to give a 2-minute statement on behalf of the RSS medical section.
So I am a member of PSI, but I've only been a member for probably 2 months. I've been on the medical section committee for the last 3 years, and I think I'm going to be the vice chair of that section later in the year. So as a committee on the medical section, I think we think there are definite opportunities for the PSI organisation to merge into the RSS. There's opportunities and benefits. One thing that they were clear about is that the medical section and the scientific section would remain distinct. I was slightly concerned to hear you say earlier on that you had a vision for the PSS section to be about all of healthcare, not just pharma, because I think that would concern the medical section members. The proposal for the new section, as far as I've understood it, is for there to be a reasonable amount of control, budget, section members, for there to be a website. And my experience of being on the medical section is that this differs to what is available now to sections. The sections have a single web page. The one that maybe differs is that the young statisticians, but as I understand it, they have to go out and set up their own website on their own, so it gives them more flexibility and opportunity to edit things more flexibly. So one question that I had to the RSS, I guess, is do they propose the new powers that seem to be on offer to PSI, are they going to be on offer to the other sections in the RSS? So in conclusion, my experience of being on the medical section, which has been really positive, and I think it's a fantastic section, and the RSS is a fantastic organisation. But to me, being a section of the RSS seems very different to what I understand PSI to currently be as an independent organisation. And inevitably, I think there will be a large degree of loss of autonomy. So as an RSS member, I think I probably support the merger, but as a very new PSI member, I wouldn't support the merger.
Thank you, Jonathan. Does anybody want to comment on the Yes campaign?
Do you want me to answer that?
Oh, yeah. Question to you first.
Yeah, just in terms of RSS section having availability, I mean, I think the point is that PSI would be bringing significant resource in, and with that resource, they would have the capacity to do all those things. So in the same way, if the medical section started bringing sponsorship in, you would then be able to hold your own conferences, etc., etc. So,
And I want to apologise for giving you the scares about taking over all of healthcare. I think the model that we run through is one of partnership with existing organisations. The analogy would be how we work in Europe. If you have expertise in a particular area, why would we recreate what you do when we can work with you and you have individuals sitting on both committees to ensure communication over the long term? You hope we'd work better together, and that we'd better the influence of both sections internally within the RSS and externally.
Okay, so I'd like to move on to the next set of questions. Christy Fletcher, could you indicate if you're on the line because I can't see you? So Christy's not on the line. So she's not on there. So she's not on the list. I can't see her. Christy, can you type something if you are there? Otherwise, I'm just going to carry on. I'm just going to carry on. So, Chrissy submitted 7 questions. So, I will use my judgment, and I'm going to address the first question to the Yes campaign, which is, why does PSI feel now is the right time to consider a merger with the RSS? Please be succinct.
Why now as opposed to 2012 or 2017?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I think the question is actually, the important question for us to decide is it a good idea for us to do it? Yes or no? If we don't do it, it's not coming up for another couple of years. We can't change what we did in the past.
And I'm going to ignore the no completely. And the next question is for the RSS. Why does the RSS want to merge with PSI?
I think I get answered that earlier.
Okay. Another question for RSS is, will PSI be able to retain its unique brand if it merges the RSS, both in the short term and in the long term?
So this is an area where the Joint Assessment Committee fudged the answer. So it's a very fair question. And basically what they said is, if you go ahead, you really should seek advice on that. My own personal view is that what you don't want to end up with is, many of you who know the Royal Geographical Society, it's called the RGS with IBG, the International British Geographers or something or another. And that was a merger that happened quite a while ago, but they've sort of had to keep that name. And it doesn't work anymore, even if it might have done at the time. So what I think needs to happen is a clear transition plan. So you may well say we keep PSI with RSS together on brand for several years and then transition out. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, but I'd say up front this was fudged in the joint assessment.
Okay. So yes or no, wish to say anything further on that?
I'd just like to make a comment that I know a lot of people feel very strongly about the PSI brand. So if it is a yes vote, we'd obviously have a conversation.
The other, I think it was Chrissy who asked the question, just very quickly. I mean, a few years ago we were trying to learn how the industry would change and the name of pharmaceutical statisticians may be restrictive in inviting, getting membership who, from more general healthcare becoming members, and we had a debate within the board about changing the name of PSI. But I think, as Nigel has said, I think PSI has a strong brand. But what I would like to see over time is that as PSI stands for quality, training, conference, etc., that over time we will see that quality still exist within a pharmaceutical section, so people get used to it. Same as, changing the name of a marathon to Snicker. Over time, people don't even know that the name has changed.
And the last question, which I will address to both the Yes and No campaign, on behalf of Chrissy, has the board explored all options to increase the efficiency of running PSI without considering a merger with the RSS?
How shall I say that? So I think there is work underway, working with MCI to look at how MCI currently do things. As I said, the contract is open each year, and I think we will have to review exactly what services we want and how we achieve those services.
Thank you. So we're on to our last contributed question for someone who is on the line, Paul Terrell. Paul, do you want to state your point?
Can you hear me, Catherine?
We can.
Okay, so I'm currently a member on the scientific committee. Clearly, the PSI is dependent on volunteers, and if we don't have volunteers, nothing's going to get done. And it is also related to one of Sarah's comments. I wondered whether the board of directors and key volunteers, with regards to continuing their position within the organisation post-decision. In particular, is their decision to stay or go affected by the outcome of our vote? We still need the leadership, whichever way we go.
Can I just check I understood the question? Paul, were you asking for Nigel to resign if there's a yes vote?
It's the other way round, actually, Rob. I'm asking, are we going to lose anybody depending on the decision? As in, we don't want to lose people.
Okay. Yeah. So do you want to answer that? Yeah. Okay. So, one, obviously, I'm on the no campaign. I want you to vote no. But I'm also a Democrat. So if the membership wants to go forward with a merger, I will support it and do whatever I can to make it successful.
Theresa May of PSI.
It starts at the weekend.
Have you seen his kitten heel?
So I think what I highlighted in my speech was that there is no intention, this is not a hostile takeover by the RSS. The activities of PSI would still continue if it moves in. If we stay alone, our activities will still continue. So I think all around the table we're still committed to delivering those goals, activities and goals. So.
Okay, because what we don't want is a mass exodus. Can I ask my second question?
Sure, I think it's already been answered, Paul, but carry on.
Okay, then let's see. We've had this mention of a get-out vote if it's deemed that the merger is not working. I just wondered what the logistics of this were. In particular, who gets to make that decision, given that we'll have been part of the RSS for a while?
Nigel?
Okay. The honest truth is that we haven't gone through and gone into and laid all the details down. However, we have discussed it at a board level, and I think the general consensus is that it would be extremely difficult to reform the PSI if we actually wish to go backwards. But one of the options we're looking at, if there was a need to do that, is to actually hold an account of money. So we would effectively keep the PSI running as a non-trading organisation, and then after 4 years, if there was a feeling that they wanted to reform it, they could actually then go back and they would have the money there, and they would obviously be able to start again. But I think the general feeling is that would be extremely difficult to do. So I think the way I see it is that a yes vote is basically permanent.
Can I just add very quickly? So I think, based on Nigel, in some ways I agree, but I think if it's a yes vote and we decide to move into the RSS, our energies should be focused on making that work and not trying to exit.
No one's saying that, though. I mean, and I think I said before as well. So if the vote is yes, I will give it my full support. And I'm not going to be on the inside trying to make it work.
We're all agreeing.
Just sort of point of information, when this came up, and in a sense, it was the RSS that offered the idea that we give you the reserves back. The reality is you wouldn't want to do it because, as you said, it'd be very hard. But it does hold our feet to the fire. So you have a mechanism. You don't enter in and say, actually, we've got no power left. I mean, there's various mechanisms. You've got governance mechanisms, but you do also have a financial hit with the RSS. So in a sense, what we're trying to think of is how do we give you some sense that you have some control when you come in? We came up with that idea. You didn't ask for it.
That's true.
Okay, I'm going to move on to, we've got one last requested statement, so if I can ask David Morgan to come to the microphone. We already have 2 other questions on the session and another one from the floor. So, David, if you could, you've got 2 minutes.
Right. Just, I've been a member of PSI for over 30 years. I was the chairman 95 to 97. I was the president of S5 from 2001 to 2003, it says here. And I've been a fellow of the RSS for over 40 years. I'm a chartered statistician, so was actually the Institute of Statisticians before that became part of the RSS, and I was on the Professional Affairs Committee, which in a sense is where the old statisticians still operate. These days, the only thing I do really for PSI now is I'm co-editor-in-chief of the Pharmaceutical Statistics Journal. I'll come back to that. I think one of the things is when PSI started, and really until we took on the journal, PSI was fairly cheap. And I'm working from memory here, but I have a memory from when I was chairman in the 90s that the subscription was £13. Important committee debate, it was fine. And it was about £65 to belong to RSS, which I think most of them did. And that in that time, PSI membership has gone from being a sort of inconsequential sort of thing to really being quite significant. And maybe that's a reason why only 25% of PSI members are also members of the RSS. I see us as pharmaceutical statisticians as being part of the general community of statisticians, which is what RSS would see itself as representing. I'm inclined to think that's the case. Certainly when I was on professional affairs, we saw the two important groups as being pharmaceutical statisticians and the government service. I think RSS misses out by not having the pharmaceutical statisticians involved. And I think the weight of statistical importance is affected by that, particularly as PSI now seems to be promoting statistical insight, which is very much what the RSS wants.
Your time's up, David.
Can I just to finalise? In principle, I'm in favour, but I think it's important that we keep the PSI culture going. It's goal-centred. The budget's important. I think it's important that we keep a practical pharmaceutical journal. We could fill it with lots of algebra papers, but we don't do that. And I will remember that there was the Statistician, which was a very good practical journal. Seems to have got diluted out, if we want. And we would need to keep working with SFI.
Thank you, David. So I've got two questions, and I'm going to go to the ones I have now two on the floor and two in front of me. I'm starting to panic. And we have 10 minutes. So there is a question that's via Leslie France, but isn't from Leslie. Very confused. Someone else who had to drop off. She would appreciate if both the yes and no side gave their views on. It's a question from an EU colleague who had to drop off the call. As a non-British member of PSI, welcomes that PSI is an organisation expanding beyond the border of the UK. She feels RSS is more British. I know we've addressed it in both the No campaign and the Yes campaign and Heaton as well. But I think if we could just have just a statement from both yes and no, because this seems to be quite an interesting topic for addressing.
Can I go first?
Yes.
Okay. So when I was a boy and you get in a quarrel and everything, my parents would often say, try and put yourself in the other person's situation. So imagine you're a European member. You joined PSI because it was specialising in pharmaceutical statistics, and you shared the European vision. Now imagine, put yourself in their situation. Imagine if we announced, all the UK members here in the audience today and on the phone, imagine if we said to you, we're going to merge with another national organisation, the French or the Swedish national organisation. How would you feel? And I think it's as simple as that. I think you really think, I kind of get it. Because that's really what it's all about. If we're going to be European, we need to think like Europeans and not think like UK-minded people. Oh, that's it.
Would you not join a SIG because it was branded UK Joint RSS and SPI? Would you not come to conference because it was branded PSI/PSS maybe in 15 years when we eventually sort out this branding business? Are the letters on the name a reason not to get engaged in the activities? I'm not necessarily sure that they are. I would acknowledge that perhaps the branding of the RSS is UK-based, but we have to face it. If you're sitting on the continent, PSI is a UK-based organisation. The RSS is not creating that problem. What's fixing that problem is our ongoing efforts to reach out to European statisticians through our events, through our one-day meetings, our conferences, our training courses, and our special interest groups. And that has to keep on going. We should be in the RSS and be more European. They're not exclusive.
So moving to questions, that is the end of questions on the online forum. So Emma Jones, you have a question. If you'd like to come to the microphone.
Okay, so I guess it's more a question for Heaton. I think we've all discussed how the objectives of PSI would remain the same, chair this year, part of the success of running a conference in Berlin was from working with an organisation like MCI that is global and has experience in running international events. How much experience does the back office at RSS have in being able to provide not only running an event, but the expertise in advising the chair or whoever's organising it in where to have it, what the finances might look like, and then actually on the day putting it on? Does the RSS also have those sorts of capabilities?
So we do at UK level at the moment, but the interesting question for me as director is an operational one, which is, in effect, you spend a batch of money on organising that conference. If it comes into the RSS, the question to me, which I'd have a discussion with you about, is do we keep outsourcing this? Because you could quite easily say that model works for the conference, so let's just keep using MCI or somebody else to do that. Or do we reconfigure the RSS event staff team and bring in somebody who has got that experience, who can help? And the reason I like working with staff is because generally you get more bang for your buck. As an example, Significance magazine used to have an editor that was outsourced. I brought that function in-house, and that person now does a shitload of other stuff as well. Similarly, if we used the money that you spend on organising the conference, bring in a senior staff person that organises events, probably not only would they organise your European conference, they'd organise 20 other events for you as well.
Okay, and Kerry Gordon, you have a question. So if you have any further questions, I have one other from the floor, but Kerry, the microphone, please.
It's a couple of things. One's a comment, one's an observation. So Kerry Gordon, otherwise known as the erstwhile murderer, Alan Abbott. My comment is reflecting something that Sarah said. I share the fear of the risk of significant erosion of membership, because particularly of the increase in membership fee. As I calculated from the figures presented earlier, approximately a 50% increase, more than a 50% increase in membership fee over 2 years. I'm a budget holder of a significant size department. That is likely to mean I will have to cut the number of people I can fund by about a third going into the merged organisation. And I worry that will lose the very dynamism that the RSS would love to bring into its organisation. It's not just fewer members, there's fewer volunteers, there's some of PSI activities. So the observations from my own experience during the time that I've been involved with PSI committees at various times, myself and people who have worked with me, it's created a lot of development opportunities. And I refute the idea that admin work that we waste our time doing when we could focus on science is a waste of time. I was involved in developing an RFP for the website, and it taught me a lot. Remember, I've worked at CRO. I'm used to getting the RFPs, not developing the RFPs. I also spent time on committees where I was chair, and the people who were on the committee were more senior than me. And if they'd been in my organisation, they'd have been my boss, and that gave me a great development opportunity. And so I think we dismiss too lightly the development opportunities that PSI has been able to give to its members, which are not related to the practice of statistics. And I fear we might lose some of that if we significantly erode the membership.
Thank you, Kerry. And Rob, I can't say your surname, sorry. Started earlier.
Rob Master Domenico, council member, exec member, membership honorary officer, vice chair of sports section, former YSS member. I'm watching the time. There's a few points I was going to say about it's basically the no campaign. A lot of the things that you say in terms of independence, bureaucratic and slow, like we had the talk from the guys from the medical section. I was on the YSS, and there are lots of parallels between young statisticians and what PSI do. And I joined very much kind of sceptical when I came to the RSS, but those kind of things aren't true. The RSS support you. They didn't hold back the section. When you talk about loss of independence, I don't remember times when we couldn't do things, and when we wanted to do things, they were quick about doing it. So maybe your experiences before are different, but the RSS is quite a different place now. And I think PSI has kind of got the same energy as like a YSS, but on a much bigger scale. And I think, they can achieve all the what they want here. And I don't think that independence, in terms of what you keep saying, will be taken away. I don't think the RSS is going to stop you doing things you want to do. It's just going to support you doing it. But again, statisticians here doing cool things. And I think all you guys could be doing cool things here. So, those independence and slow things, you've raised the points, but I would question whether they're still valid in the 2016 RSS.
So are there any more questions either online? I have one from the floor and on bedding. Please come to the microphone.
So mine's a very quick question. I can shout. Mine's very quick. It's just on Nigel's point, and this is around the board's support of this. From what I'm hearing, I sit on the board as well. From what I'm hearing, the board do not wholesale support of this. So how can we let this go this far without the board's full support? That's a quick question.
Right, okay, can I clarify this? So the proposal was brought to the board and discussed within the board, and we had a debate and a vote to see whether we would take this proposal to the membership, because we need the membership to vote 2/3 in favour to take it forward. Okay, that vote was taken. It was passed with a 9-4 majority. So since that time, we have had significant numbers of board members change. So we now have 1/3 of a new board. And I think we mentioned the emotive issues around this. And I think the feedback we had from the membership, from the board, was they wanted to hear the debate. Okay, so I think it's still an emotive issue. I think the board recognises that there are advantages, but, they wanted to hear the pros and cons before making the decision. The other thing, Nigel and I had a discussion about whether we would use a proxy vote. If we did have a vote, would we, the board have a proxy vote for those members who decided they were undecided, and just, I think both of us are in agreement that something so important, we wouldn't want to do that. So it's not the fact that we haven't had a vote, it's the fact that the board members, we've got new board members coming on, and I'm not going to respond to say we will definitely have a vote, because that is up for the board members to decide, and we haven't had that discussion yet.
Just say something. With hindsight is a great thing, but I think we asked the wrong question, and I have to hold my hand up there. I was a member of the board. I could have stood up and said, look, no, we should be asking a different question. With hindsight, we should have asked the question, are we all on board with this to start with? And then we could have then gone forward or then stopped it at that moment. And we asked the wrong question. And I think collectively we have to be responsible for that, and I'm a part of that decision. But I think we made the wrong call.
Okay, so there's just, I think that will be the final question, unless there's any other burning questions, and we will now move to the rebuttal section. And as in the same order we did it before, I will ask the Yes campaign to do the rebuttal, and you have 5 minutes.
Okay. I won't take all my time, and maybe Sarah, when I was saying some particularly outrageous things earlier during the Q&A session, I saw you raising your eyes and maybe trying to get in. So if you want to jump in during this section or take some of my time at the end, you're more than welcome to it. I think the principal concerns that I've heard during the discussion today have been from Nigel's speech, talking about whether we're in good health in our great facilities, and why do we need, or why are we worried enough to go into this? Well, I think we should emphasise again that this is not defensive. I think you shouldn't vote for this if you want to do it to save PSI from the flames. You should vote for it if you believe that the RSS is a platform that would help us to achieve particular elements of our strategy without damaging other ones. In that case, sells you. I mean, it sounds very sexy when I say it, but if that's the case that sells you, then you should vote. And I think some of it depends on, or some of the concerns, as I hear them, depend on the perceived slowness of the RSS. I think Rob has answered that to some extent. I think we also have to ask who put out the statement on the trials in Paris earlier this year. Who has their online stuff running before we do? Is the RSS really as slow as it has been perceived? I think there is some energy there into which we could tap. And then the two biggest ones, I think, are about the loss of independence and financial control, the loss of voice. question is going to be, the big one is about, do we believe we can get the resources? Do we believe that the RSS are going to put the muscle behind us that we want and are going to be in a position to do that? And that's what you have to, over the course of the next week, 8 weeks, interrogate us, interrogate members of the RSS, because the agreement that we have is high level. It doesn't detail all these things. So do you trust the board to strike a deal, a detailed negotiation that will serve us well? I think they're a very capable bunch of people. Maybe hamstrung by the lack of a very handsome Irishman who stepped down. But do have the confidence, do have the interest. I also believe in the music that's coming from the RSS. Could we strike a better deal? Is anybody else wooing us so ardently as the RSS are? We went to DIA, we got short shrift. We've gone to SPI, we've talked about this with other national associations. They're just not interested. Could we get a better deal? That's the question I've got out.
Okay.
Some of his time,
yeah.
am I allowed a couple of minutes?
Yeah,
Start off, because the two, I guess, comments that were made from you guys earlier that I didn't have the opportunity to respond to was around, is there a better deal? And going as a membership organisation to become a European membership organisation is hard. We don't have the same vacuum that fused it with the programme. But just because something's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it if we believe that we would be much more impactful and influential. So actually, I think that is a better deal for PSI members. I can see why, and then sort of leading on to the other comment I wanted to make, which is I can clearly see the benefits to RSS members of this. For me, I can only see really risks to PSI, and I think the one advantage that I think seems to be proposed as the main reason for doing this is to save volunteer time. Like I said, I applaud the motivation behind that, but it feels that at the moment that the discussions have been so high level that it's very fuzzy about whether that will be or not. And therefore, given the number of risks, if that's the main benefit, I'd want to have much more confidence that that was really going to be the case before even having a conversation.
I hope that, so we've been putting committee chairs in contact with opposite numbers in the RSS to enable those conversations to take place. I think you're right, it is still too early to know that for sure, but hopefully by the time we get to a vote, we'll have the information that will be able to be put in front of the members to help.
Yep, carry on. Free for all.
Okay, so this is my summary. Okay, so PSI is a very successful European organisation which has total focus on pharmaceutical statistics. We have 898 members, strong scientific offering, an excellent scientific journal, and are respected globally. Our finances, has been shown, are in good shape. We have reserves of £152,000, which is more than adequate for an organisation of our size. We are also forecasted to make at least, and I mean at least as well, £35,000 this year. It's going to be more than that. We want PSI to become a UK-centric organisation by all means, both the merger with the Royal Statistical Society. I think the name says it all. However, if you believe that the pharmaceutical industry is a global business and you believe that it's in the European strategy of the PSI, I encourage you to vote against the merger. Please also think of the 38% of members who are from outside the UK. And I think this is really important. Think of them because they joined the PSI on the understanding that they were joining a European organisation and also that we have total focus on pharmaceutical statistics. PSI is an independent organisation and we have self-determination. We can determine our objectives and we can set our own budget. We do not need to report to any other organisation. The only people we report to is our members. I ask you also to consider the increase in the membership fee to £135. This is a significant increase, and as Kerry mentioned earlier, but some managers are going to question this. People who are paying out of the pocket as well, that they might think twice with this sort of increase. I want to come on now in terms of resources. Meeting rooms can be hired. Online training capacity can be bought. You don't need to give up your independence to have this. If it's that much of an, we just need to make it a top priority within the organisation. And I'm sorry, but I've got to bring this up. And if the RSS's infrastructure is so strong, please question the meeting and how it's been run today. I know it seems a bit low, but it hasn't really gone totally to plan. Please do not be under any illusion. It would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to reform the PSI. Once it's gone, it's gone. I ask you to also to review the infographic that was released yesterday. When you put the arguments side by side, you will see why I joined the No campaign. PSI is a fantastic organisation. We have fantastic volunteers. We have a great future. We should not give up our independence. The risks, as Sarah says, really far outweigh the benefits. I ask you to vote against the motion.
Thank you, Nigel. I think there's a rebuttal coming from the Yes campaign.
Thank you. I want to challenge one thing that Nigel has said. I think I don't want to let the meme of 38% of European members who joined on the explicit understanding that PSI was an EU-focused organisation that would serve their European needs. Last year, it was 25%. When people come to conference, they become a member. The difference is about 100, 130 members. That's probably about how many members we had from ex-UK coming to conference this year. I think we need to be realistic about how European an organisation PSI is. It's about 25% last year, kind of like the numbers you're getting for the RSS. So I don't want that 38% meme to leave the room. That's just, sorry, go on, Kerry. Fire away.
I need to come to the microphone.
The comment to make is that, I don't know, I'm a little bit disappointed with the number of people we have in the room, and I understand that there may be a similar number on the phone. I don't know if anybody on the phone is from the continent. But I just wonder what both campaigns would like to say about how we're going to increase the take-up and interest in this debate, and in particular the vote, when it comes to the vote. If any vote, whichever way it goes, has to provide a mandate that we can all work with. I'm concerned that so far we've not heard from PSI members outside of the UK.
I think that's a great point. Before we turn to that, I do want to address something that Nigel said about the meeting tonight. I think there is a lesson, which is don't make arguments about the ease of technological change when you're running a meeting or the structure of a meeting that is more complicated than any meeting we have run. We do not do this at conference. We do not have an online and in-the-room debate at conference. We don't do it at any of our scientific meetings. We don't do it at any of our webinars. So what we have asked the RSS to do more than they normally do. And we changed on Friday what we asked of them because we thought that the setup that we have at the moment wasn't sufficient to meet their needs. Yeah. And so the message I want to come out from this is stuff-ups happen. That's part of life. It happened when we did our webinars with MCI earlier this year. We had some problems with getting Nigel's voice over the phone line. That's life. And what I would like to, particularly with Camilla in the back of the room, I think Jack's got home, is what is important is not whether or not you fail, it's how hard you try to make things right. And I really want to thank you, Camilla, for the effort that you put in upstairs, frantically skirting around underneath this table while a meeting was assembling around you in order to get a debate that we could hear online and which people outside of the meeting room could contribute to. So yes, absolutely, things didn't go brilliantly, but I think I'm pretty impressed by the response that came out from the team of the RSS. So thank you, Camilla.
So I'm going to ask for one campaign and then we should wrap up.
I just wanted to respond to Robert's point there. And the reason I made that point is in my mind, when I look at the infographic and things like that and I weigh everything up, I think the biggest selling point of the RSS is online training and the infrastructure. And so that's why I was making the point. If honestly, if I would have run this meeting today in my company, it would be ran fine. So we would have been able to do this. So and that's why I'm questioning it, because if that's the biggest selling point, really look at the evidence today. I think it's important.
We just had a response just to mention that Leslie France said there were 2 people from Sweden on the call just to represent Europe, so from mainland Europe. So on that positive note, I would like to thank all the debatees. I'd like to thank Ethan for taking the quickfire questions at RSS, and there is just a summary from Mark on next steps, which I will find.
Carrie, you mentioned about engaging the membership. So there is a communication in plan. It's a 12-week campaign. You will see an infographic would have popped into your email account during the week. We will be following up to make sure, review who has received it. We will be sending it out again. That's the beginning of a 12-week or 10-week campaign leading up to a membership vote. Another debate on the 15th of September, and also we would then open the voting electronically for all members to hold a vote. I think Nigel's comment about the issues today, it'll be interesting. We've booked a venue at the London Mathematical Society for the 15th. Nigel is going to sort out the logistics of this meeting, including working with Kevin with the audio. So we will see how well he does.
Obviously, we've designed it to go.
No, I don't. So generally, yes, we realise that I think we have had a conscious acknowledgement that we need to engage the membership. I think what we've done so far hasn't really hit the mark, and we've got a plan which will include debates on LinkedIn, as you have seen, between the yes and no camp, and there's also discussions ongoing about taking the debate to individual companies with representation from both sides. So we are doing all we can, or we hope to do all we can to make sure that the membership is engaged. I mean, I think for the board, what we want to make sure is that people have access to the information to make an informed choice. What we don't want, as Bill Bailey said, is that we don't want people to cast their vote and then go home and Google the RSS. Right? So we want to make sure that they have the information available to them, and it is our responsibility to make sure that happens.
Thank you very much, Mark. I think I'll then now close this meeting. Thank you very much to Heaton and the RSS for persevering with PSI today, and we very much appreciate it.